WHPC HD Garden City.
Available everywhere on the Odyssey app.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are
Sing it, brother!
the orange and blue.
Sing it. Come on.
Yes, brother.
How are those Yankees doing, brother?
I can't say that word on the air.
Come on. Anyway.
Put it this way. It's the same way that Evan Roberts feels about Tom Glavine.
Wow. And guess who we're speaking to in about 1 minute?
Yeah, that's why I said it. He'll
We
know.
are talking, first of all, welcome to From the Press Box here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Right here on 90.3 WHPC. My name is Rob Leonard, and joining me, as always, is my brother and award-winning sports writer, Timothy J. Leonard.
How you doing?
And on the phone with us, this is a big thing. I mean, we've had Cleon Jones, we've had Ed Kranepool, we've had Pete Stemkowski.
I was just about to say we've had Mets royalty, and then you threw in Pete Stemkowski for some
Well,
reason.
Stemmers. I work with Stemmer. I love Stemmer.
Stemmer's royalty.
We have a guy from WFAN. Evan Roberts is joining us. He is the author of a new book called My Mets Bible, scoring 30 years of baseball fandom, published by Triumph. And welcome, Evan Roberts, to WHPC and From the Press Box. How you doing? Whoops. There we go. You there, Evan?
Yeah, sorry about that. My phone cut out. I called you from a landline.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Anyway, well, welcome to the show. First of all, before we start, how we liking our Mets?
I'm liking them better now than I did 2 months ago.
That's for
sure. I mean,
sure.
they've at least made this last part of the season relevant. I thought the last 2 wins were very important because the 3-game losing streak felt like we were reverting back to what we saw in May. So right now, as a Met fan, I feel somewhat satisfied, but it's an important 6 games before the All-Star break, 7 games before the All-Star break, and hopefully they can keep the momentum going.
I agree, but like a month and a half ago, Met fans were at the edge of the building, as I like to say, looking down, saying, should I land on that car or should I land on that Yankee fan walking by?
Well, could you blame any of us? I mean,
No.
that was, especially considering it wasn't just the record, it wasn't just being 11 games under 500, it was the way they were losing games. I mean, they were, that Saturday in Miami, where Edwin Diaz came in with a 4-run lead and they imploded.
Yep.
Like, it was almost an every other day basis where they would blow these just awful games. So it was a very, very tough beginning to this season, but luckily things have stabilized, to say the least.
Now, I got a question for you. You work at WFAN. You're like the big Mets guy there. But Joe Beningo, last time I looked, is kind of a Met fan still.
Kind of.
Wow.
But
we're doing the understatement thing today.
yes, understatement. My question for you is, who reacts more to a Met win or a Met loss? I mean, if the Mets lose, are you depressed, or is Beningo depressed more than you? If the Mets win, are you feeling better than Joe? That's the question.
I think what I've learned over the years working with Joe is that the highs are the highest and the lows are the lowest. So, listen, I'll get high after a win. I'll get low after a loss. But one thing I appreciated about Joe is sometimes after a win, I'd look into his eyes, and he'd say, bro, we're winning the freaking World Series here. And then sometimes after a loss, the look would be, this is the worst team I've ever seen. So I think he gets the award for extremes.
Oh.
I think he goes on the roller coaster ride a lot more so than a lot of others.
Yeah, Joe is one of those people who you hear athletes talk all the time about even keel and staying on trying to stay on one level no matter if it's a win or a loss. Yeah, Joe doesn't have even keel.
Exactly.
Well,
the good is higher than most goods, and the bad is lower than most bads. That's the way I would define it.
Absolutely.
I love when people call Joe and they know that he's a super Met fan, and they sort of just set him up, and it's just great radio. Anyway, we're talking with Evan Roberts. Of course, he is the author of My Mets Bible, published by Triumph. He, of course, is part of the Tiki Barber, Evan Roberts team, or is it Evan Roberts and Tiki Barber? I forgot which one.
Call it however you want it.
On
WFAN. We both
WFAN.
don't have egos. Doesn't matter which name comes first.
Let's go with the latter until we get Tiki on the show.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's start off with this book. Your obsession, I guess, when it comes to baseball, is keeping a nice scorecard. Can we say that?
Oh, no doubt. I really think, because I did a lot of research, asking my dad a lot of questions about how this whole thing started with me scoring games. I think scoring games actually got me into baseball. It was a way to calm me down when my dad would take me to games, because he was the ultimate fan. He would go to 70, 75 games a year as a season ticket holder. And so early on when I was young, he taught me how to score games. And ever since then, like to this day, I'm about to turn 41 years old. I score every game. It's a very therapeutic thing. I did it as a kid. I did it as I was growing older. It helps me sometimes on the radio, like referring to moments from a game. But the truth is, to me, everybody has a hobby. Some like to play golf. Some like to bowl. I think my ultimate hobby is sitting down with a Met game on and my scorebook in hand and going to town. And I've been doing it since I was about 7 years old. And
you have a book. I mean, you like when you go to a game, you don't buy a program. I assume you have your own little book you bring in and you.
I have my own book. Now, it started as a program. Like when my dad taught me, he would buy me, whatever it cost back then, $2.50 a program. And I think after about 2 years of scoring every game, my dad said, "Listen, son, this is getting too expensive. I mean, every time we go to a game, I'm throwing down $2 on a scorecard." So I eventually got a book. I graduated to the Bob Carpenter scorebook, which is like the best scorebook one can have. And Bob is a broadcaster for the Washington Nationals. He put his own book together like 25, 30 years ago. So, yeah, every year is a book. And I have a nice area in my house where I've got about 35 books filled with just baseball games. Most of them meaningless baseball games, but a lot of baseball games.
But that book, because I was going to ask you about those books. Those are the books that a lot of the beat writers use.
I think so, yeah. Definitely a lot of broadcasters. Like, I know Howie Rose, who does Mets radio, uses it. I think Gary Cohen does. I'm not 100% sure. But a part of why everybody uses it is because it's so great. I mean, it's got, a box for the benches, a box for the bullpens, a box for the defensive alignment. It's the best. And I've been using that same book since I think the first year I ever started using that book was 1996. So that's a good, 28-year run, whatever it is.
So basically, you can't do your own book and make some money, like the Evan Roberts book.
No.
It's tough to improve on perfection.
Here's the way I look at it. Bob Carpenter, to his credit, created the perfect book. If I or anybody else tried to create one that's quote-unquote better, it'd be like a cheap ripoff. So as great as it would be to have my own scorebook, perfection has already been created, and I pay homage to the great Bob Carpenter because I think it's the best scorebook he put. And it's funny, when I was about 13 years old, I met him, and he was at a Mets game. I think at the time he was doing the Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken, and I gave him a suggestion for the book, and he actually used it.
Wow.
So I feel like I have a small contribution to the legacy of the Bob Carpenter scorebook.
But you talk about not wanting this, possibility of, getting sponsorship for your thing. I'm reminded of Pete Rose many years ago. Pete Rose was once asked, "Well, why don't you do like a video?" A hitting video, and he says, "This is my hitting
gambling video." What?
He said, "This is my hitting video. See the ball, hit the ball."
Right.
But years later, guess what? Pete had his own hitting video. So
wow, you know why? He needs a couple of dollars in the bank.
Exactly.
I mean, he sold himself out for
to
it.
get to the window. But we all know that the perfect hitting video was made by Fred McGriff many years ago.
Oh, of course. Come on, that was the best.
Evan, talk to me about what I want to know, and it's kind of a nerdy fascination of mine to a certain extent. Tell us how you score a game, because it seems like everybody kind of knows what they're doing and knows how to do it, but everybody kind of seems to have their own little nuance to it. So I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to use your boy Rico Bronya for an example. All right? How would it be scored? Let's say Rico singles. He goes to second on another single because we know he's not that fast. He makes it to third on a wild pitch, and then he scores on a sacrifice fly. How would you score that?
Well, there's a lot of little lines. I like to kind of show when he got to third base on the wild pitch. So what I would do is, in the at-bat, whoever was up while Rico advanced to third on the wild pitch, I would have a line connecting it, almost like drawing it up and saying, okay, this is when he went to third base, because you want to be fully descriptive. Same thing on the sacrifice fly. I put a little line to kind of show when he moved bases. But that's how I do it. The beauty of scoring, and you pointed it out, is everyone has their own idiosyncrasies. A couple of weeks ago, this was a conversation I had, and I'm never going to forget it now, with Keith Hernandez. Keith came on our radio show. We were just talking about the Mets, no big deal. And then we started talking about scoring. And Keith Hernandez, while he broadcasts these games, obviously scores. And he comes to me and says, I got a question for you. I'm like, oh, wow, Keith Hernandez asking me a question.
Right.
Great. He says, how do you score a ground ball to first base in which the first baseman takes it to the bag himself? And I'm like, well, it's 3U, three unassisted.
3 unassisted.
And he gave me the biggest, pound I've ever seen. He was so happy. He's like, thank you. I said, why? I thought that was obvious.
Yeah, how else would you score it?
He said, this is what he claims, Gary Cohen and Ron Darling will just write 3. And I said, but that's wrong. 3 means the guy got the, it was like a line drive at him.
Or a pop-up, something, yeah.
So I never realized this, but apparently there are some in the scoring community, including Gary Cohen and Ron Darling, who, for whatever reason, and I guess there's no wrong answer, even though this does sound like a wrong answer, decides to score it as 3. And to Keith Hernandez, it meant a lot to him that somebody else was scoring it 3U. But I think that's the beauty of scoring. There are little differences. For a double, some people write 2B. Some people do the 2 dashes. I'm a big dash guy, so I'll put 2 dashes for a double, 1 dash for a single, 3 dashes for a triple. But I know that, and again, it's not wrong to put 2B or 3B or 1B, but that's the beauty of scoring. Everybody's got a different way of doing it. The way I've been doing it, I haven't changed in 30 years. I've added some things, to be more descriptive. If a guy makes a great play, I might write GP for great play, something small like that. But for the most part, if I go back, and you could do it in this book with a lot of my early scorecards, I score the exact same way. I haven't really altered much from 1997 to 2024.
Yeah, for me, and the one thing that I noticed with and that to me is one of the cool features of the book is that all of your scorecards are in the book.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I noticed, because one of the things that I do is I'll put from base to base as he's going around, and once the guy scores, I'll color in the little diamond, and this way I can see immediately when I look at it, hey, there's a run. So I'm not sure what you do, because I didn't see any colored diamonds in your book, and I'm like, all right, how does he know who scored or how they scored?
So that's another example of a way a lot of people do it. I only color in home runs.
Okay.
So if a guy hits a home run, I color it in. If a guy just gets around the bases, it's just a complete diamond. And for whatever reason, my eyes will jump to it. I hear what you're saying. It'll jump out more when you see it colored in.
Right.
For me, and maybe it's because I'm just so used to it.
Exactly.
As long as the diamond is complete, that run will jump out at me. But that's the beauty of scoring.
Yeah.
We all do it completely different ways, and there isn't really a wrong answer. Whatever works for you is the key.
I'm going to say, though, that the Ivy League guy was wrong with Ron Darling. I'm going to say that.
Exactly.
I'm on Keith's side. I'm on your side.
Wrong. Yes.
And it's good just to say an Ivy League guy is wrong about something.
Anyway, we're talking with Evan Roberts. He is the author of My Mets Bible, published by Triumph. Of course, Evan is also on WFAN with Tiki Barber. He's also on this SNY, the 2-hour video thing too. So
they eavesdrop on our radio show, and they put 2 hours on TV from 4 to 6 p.m. That's the way I look at it.
Well, they pay you, so be happy.
A little bit, yeah.
Anyway, you start out your book with your first game, and now Timmy's a Yankee fan, but when we first started out as little kids, he was a Met fan because he had a lot of taste, and now he's a Yankee fan. It's just easy to be a Yankee fan, But anyway, our first game was in 1970, where Jim McAndrew pitched, against who, and it was Sunday, August 27th. I did not get, our father bought us a program, but we didn't know anything about a program. We wanted a yearbook, but my father doesn't really know baseball, and the yearbook was a lot more money than a program, so he bought us a program, which we had to share.
Dad took the cheap way out.
Yeah, so your first game, what do you remember about your first game? Because
I've done a lot of research to find out that my first game was when I was 9 months old, because my dad and mom dragged me as an infant to Shea Stadium in 1984. I was born in 1983. So as you can imagine, I have zero recollection of my first game. But my dad, and he taught me a lot of the tendencies I have. He wrote down every game he ever went to. like on a little calendar. And it includes when my sister went or when I went. So I was able to figure out, based on how he wrote it down, I went to 2 games in 1984, 3 games in 1985. So I don't remember a first game, but what I did with these scorecards is I said, let me find the earliest scorecard. Like, I don't know when the game was. I don't know when this started. It was almost like I was doing an archaeological dig to, like, figure this out. And the earliest game I found was back in 1992. It was a game against the Pirates. I published it in the book. It's the first scorecard that's there. And, of course, the Mets lost. And, of course, Barry Bonds hit the game-winning home run. So it did have some kind of cool moments. But the truth is, I don't remember anything about it. I assume, based on talking to my dad, that he needed to calm me down at games. I was, a kid that was rambunctious. I couldn't pay attention. I was all over the place. Meanwhile, my sister would sit there very calmly. And so his idea was, let me teach him how to do something during a game, and that got me hooked. So the first game I could find was this game against Pittsburgh back in June of 1992, where they lost. I mean, the Mets were terrible that year. That was actually the worst team money could buy, as they were famously called.
Right.
So what a great time to get into the Mets, by the way. I mean, I couldn't have had better timing. Start watching them in 92 and 93. But they did lose, and the legendary Barry Bonds, pre-steroids, hit a game-winning home run. So that's what I was able to find out about the first game I ever scored.
Wow. So we didn't score for a long time. I mean, you know what gets me about scoring? I just want to bring this up before we jump to a couple of things. My thing about scoring is when they do, like, how do you figure out, let's say they do a pitching change and they then do the switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the pitcher now bats third.
Right.
And I don't know how to put that on my scorecard.
You just write the name in underneath the third hitter.
Yeah, but it never looks right.
Well,
It's not going to be neat and organized. Look at like you see it in the playoffs during breaks in the action. Like back in the '90s with the Yankees, you'd see Joe Torre's scorecard in the dugout. It'd be a mess.
Yeah, I got great news for you. You don't have to worry about it anymore with the DH being universal.
Yeah, really.
The double switch has become the way of the dodo bird. But I always love the double switch. I always love those moves because getting to write another name underneath another name to make it a little messy almost made the game feel, like, there's a lot going on. So I never minded that as much. But ever since they went universal DH, I write a lot less. We all write a lot less because instead of writing the pitcher into the batting order every single time, you literally just write the pitcher in the pitcher's box, and you very rarely have to make the 5,000 changes that you'd have to make prior to the DH being universal. So
I hate the
I don't
universal
know if it's a good
DH
thing because I kind of like doing all that work, but there's a lot less work scoring games now with the DH.
I hate the DH. I hate it. I wish it wasn't around.
Me too.
Or
I
if
did
you're
not
gonna have
like the DH.
If you're going to have the DH, make it the 10th player and have the pitcher still hit. Because I think
can I tell you my issue with that then?
What?
What if a guy pitches a perfect game? It won't look neat and organized. The beauty of the perfect game is 3, 3, 3, and that's 9. 3, 3, 3. And
Okay.
that's if you got 10, you mess the whole thing up.
Okay, you got a point there.
Evan, another thing that I personally liked about the book is a lot of the games that you went to were actually games that I covered for the Bergen Record.
Oh, nice.
For example, the Grand Slam single game, I covered that game. In fact, my brother and our lifelong friend, Rob Tuck, they were actually at the game, and I brought them press notes. I had, in the middle of writing 4 stories that night, I actually escaped the press box for 3 minutes, brought them press notes from the press box. I'm like, yeah, I got to go. I got more work to do.
Yeah, seriously. That was some game, man.
Yeah,
marathon game.
And I would have gotten you a copy, too, if I would have known you were there.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
But the thing that made me kind of chuckle about that entry in the book was the part where you said you closed your scorebook and you put it away. Now, any reporter will tell you how aggravating it is to try to write on wet paper because it really can't be done. How you were that confident that Robin Ventura was going to end the game?
It wasn't a confidence. What it was when I still do this to this day. If it's going to rain, I bring a little towel with me.
Yeah.
So I put the towel above the scorecard. If I have to write something in, I lift the towel. Blah blah blah. It's like a tarpaulin. I got my own tarp for when I score baseball games, and it's usually pretty effective because for the most part, if it's raining a lot, they're going to stop the game. This isn't the NFL where you're going to play through all conditions. That game, as you may recall, though you're in the press box and you're blocked away from this. It was raining for, I'm telling you, 5 or 6 innings straight.
Yep.
And it wasn't pouring necessarily, but it was a consistent rain. And that towel that I had could only take so much. Like it was starting to soak through. And at that point, after Todd Pratt drew the walk, which luckily tied the game, So I knew, okay, we're not losing here. We're either going to win this game dramatically or we're going to another inning, in which, by the way, I'm going to have to, turn the page on my scorebook because it's so late into the game, and I think the book only had 15 innings or 14 innings, whatever it is.
15 innings for those
15.
books.
I got to double check. I kind of knew, I can't physically – the book's not holding up anymore. So I'm going to shut it, and whatever happens here with bases loaded, one out, Robin Ventura against Kevin McGlinchey, I know I'm not forgetting it. If he grounds into a double play, it's going to be the biggest kick in the groin, and I'll remember it, and then I'll worry about the next inning later. I don't know what I would have done. But if he comes through, and obviously he did, I'm never going to forget the entire sequence. So a lot of it was necessity. It was getting so wet that night that the book just couldn't hold up anymore. And thank God the game ended for two reasons. A, the Mets won, and then B, I don't know what I was going to do with my scorebook.
And what happens with extra inning games? How does he? They only usually go up to 10 innings on.
No, that scorebook goes up to 15.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, this goes 15. So what I've done is, and I have one game in this book that I included that went to 20 or 21. It was a game against the Cardinals about 10 years ago.
Right.
So what I do is I flip the page. I just kind of continue on.
All you can do. You got to sacrifice that next game.
Okay, good point. By the way, that game with Robin Ventura's Grand Slam single, at this point, I wish the Major League Baseball people, since they're changing things about records and everything, there's no reason not to give him credit for a Grand Slam. Yes, he didn't touch all the bases, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't really change the series because the Mets lost the next game. So to give him a Grand Slam instead of the single would be, 3 more runs. It doesn't change anything, but it gives him a Grand Slam in a playoff game.
Here's why you're right, but I disagree with you. Because at the end of the day, you're right. The ball went over the fence. Who cares? Who cares if he didn't finish rounding the bases? Don't you think that moment becomes even bigger because it is a Grand Slam single as opposed to, it was a walk-off Grand Slam. Not that walk-off Grand Slams aren't cool and they aren't amazing, and we'd certainly remember it, but I think in a way it adds to it. I'll give you a sort of example. Armando Galarraga pitched a non-perfect game, perfect game. If that call is right at first base and he just pitches a perfect game, I don't think any of us remember it. I think it would just be one of the many perfect games that we've seen, like Domingo Germán pitched one last year, and nobody remembers it. Nobody gives a rat's you-know-what. Yeah. But I think because you had such an egregious missed call, the non-perfect game, perfect game becomes bigger. So, again, not a direct comparison, but I think the fact that it's a Grand Slam single, which is such a unique thing to say.
It's the only one in history.
Okay, I'll let you slide on that, but I
so generous.
I'd like to get Robin Ventura another home run. You know
what? I don't think Robin Ventura cares.
I think the '99 team was so good. I love the '99 team. I had a Sunday package with my friend Rob Tuck, and we'd go there, and every Sunday seemingly was another enjoyment of great baseball. I had such a great time with the '99 team. The 2000 team made the World Series, but the '99 team I thought was going to make the World Series, and maybe I enjoyed it more because of that.
Yeah, greatest infield ever assembled defensively. Losing John Olerud was a big blow. Not a knock on Todd Zeile. He had some big hits in that postseason, but I think that was one of the big differences between '99 and 2000, not having Olerud.
Yep. Yes. And I'm picking out games I've been to. So, because for those who don't know, you list all the games you have been to and have scorecards to, which is literally everything.
Yeah,
and
the most significant ones to him. That's the point of the book. Yes,
that's the point of the book. It's not like every game, because that's a bigger book. Anyway, one of my favorite games I was at, and you call it "There Will Be a Game 163," because the Mets had to win that game, and they did.
Yes.
And they made the playoffs because of that, 1999.
That is such an underrated game. I don't think enough Met fans really appreciate that game because, like you said, that's a playoff game. The Mets had collapsed a week earlier, which is also sort of forgotten. They had blown their lead in the wild card race. They needed to finish the season strong. They were doing it. They won this game on a Friday night against Pittsburgh. They won dramatically on Saturday. And now they were set up on Sunday where if they lose, there's uncertainty because the Reds had to play a game, and so the race was up in the air. They were tied for that last wild card spot, or the only wild card spot back then. And so they needed to win that game against the Pirates, and they knew there'd be another game. Either it goes right to Arizona to play the Diamondbacks, or there'd be a one-game playoff, which there turned out to be against Cincinnati. But that game was so, like, gut-wrenching because it was a playoff game. For me, in my lifetime, it was the first playoff game they'd ever played, honestly, because they hadn't been in the playoffs since 1988. I was 5 years old. I certainly don't remember it. So that game, very underrated. It kind of stunk how it ended. Mike Piazza comes up, bases loaded, tie game, bottom of the ninth inning, and Brad Klontz throws a first pitch, wild pitch onto the screen, and that's how it ends. And it almost looked like Piazza was confused. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Celebrate? I didn't do anything. But it was so important, and I do remember the wild celebration we all had after because we knew we may have to play a one-game playoff. We may go to the playoffs in general. We don't know. But the bottom line is the season isn't over, and that was a really cool feeling.
I agree. It was a nice comeback for what you mentioned. They were slipping the last couple of weeks, and all of a sudden they get in, and it was like, all right, we like the wild card. We like the wild card.
Yeah.
Evan, I have a question because I was reading the Subway Series chapters. And by Subway Series, I mean the first iteration, when the Yankees and Mets first played in those early years. How did you get tickets for these games?
So my dad, for many, many years, had like a deal where he would buy 5 Yankee games a year from he's a CPA, so one of his clients was a Yankee season ticket holder. And these were the days long before the legend seats. So he had these seats that were like 10 rows off the field. They were amazing, amazing seats. And I remember him telling me they were really affordable. Like they were not, overly priced the way the legend seats are.
Yeah, it wasn't $1,500 a ticket.
Exactly. So he would get 5 games a year. And so for the first ever Subway Series game, I think his client knew, you know what, we're going to give the Met fan the first Subway Series game because here's this Met fan who's a part of a 5-game, season ticket plan. So for the first game, we sat in these incredible seats where Dave Malicki pitched the shutout, and it was unbelievable. The other 2 games, we sat in the upper deck, and I think it was like $20 a ticket. Like it wasn't anything crazy back then because as soon as the schedule came out, goes online. If you remember, even in 1997, the Yankees were not drawing as well as they're drawing now, even coming off a World Series. Like their attendance figures were still sort of down. This was back in the day where George was threatening to move to New Jersey.
Right.
So some people forget that. So getting those tickets was not that difficult.
Okay.
But we didn't sit in great. For game 2 and 3, we were just happy to be in the building. I remember the third game, we were upper deck down the left field line where there were a lot of blind spots. Like the blind spot on the game-winning hit was so bad, I didn't even know if it was going to be fair or foul.
Okay.
Meanwhile,
I know where you were sitting.
Replay after, it wasn't even close. It was a line drive to left field.
Right.
But hey, old Yankee Stadium, upper deck, 5 rows from the top, you never know what you're going to see. So the first game was awesome because we sat in these amazing seats. But those last 2 games weren't. Like, they were $20 seats in the upper deck because the Yankees weren't this powerful draw back then as they are today.
We're talking with Evan Roberts. His book is called My Mets Bible, published by Triumph. Of course, Evan works at WFAN also and is part of the SNY afternoon drive also. This is written with the heart of a Met fan, which is sometimes, as a Met fan, though not as crazy as you and Joe, but just sometimes it's tough to follow the Mets, even though I've been a lifelong Met fan. My question for you is, and this is off the book here, but how did you feel about the Wilpons as an owner, or owners, I should say? So
before the Madoff scandal, I thought they were actually better than people gave them credit for because I always thought that the Mets spent a lot. They just didn't spend as much as the New York Yankees. I mean, they went out and had some big off seasons, whether it was Pedro Martinez and Carlos Beltran, or the following year bringing in Carlos Delgado, or the following year trading and signing Johan Santana. So I remember when I was doing the overnights in the mid-2000s, it's not that I was like huge fans of them, but I thought that they were maligned for unfair reasons. And then everything changed because once they were involved in the Bernie Madoff situation, I'm looking at the results. And the results were they went from being a perennially top 5 payroll team to a middle-of-the-pack payroll team. And they did not function like a New York baseball club should function. Then you've got Jeff Wilpon, who I thought was way too meddling, especially when things got bad. It's like I want to be fair, especially now that they're gone. Like I don't want to give you just the emotional, they were terrible. Like they were terrible, but they weren't always terrible. I also thought that when Nelson Doubleday was there, it evened it out a little bit. Because you go back to the Mike Piazza trade, apparently Fred Wilpon didn't want to do it.
Yep.
He believed in Todd Hundley. He was loyal to him. And that's when Nelson stepped in and said, what are you doing? We got to trade for Mike Piazza. So I thought during that tenure when there was a shared ownership with the Doubledays, it wasn't as bad. And certainly the early 2000s, right after Nelson sold it wasn't that bad because they spent and they tried. Like, they went out and traded for Yohan Santana. Like, we can't forget that. But after the Madoff scandal, they were a disgrace. And I was obviously celebrating like most when they finally sold the team.
Yeah, we can't tell a story, but we once was talking to one of the security guards, and he gave us a really detailed story about Jeff Wilpon, which we can't tell on the air. But
I can only imagine.
Yeah. I want to hit one more game because we can talk all hour with you, but you've got things to do. Let's talk about another game I was at with Rob Tuck, and I was upset the Mets lost this game because I really thought the Mets could come back. Game 5, 2000 World Series. And my memory of the game is my friend Rob Tuck goes, if they lose it in this inning, let's run out fast so we don't have to see Yankee fans, jumping up and down.
Celebrating.
And all of a sudden Mike Piazza gets that hit, and you think it's going to clear the fence, and then it doesn't.
No, Bernie tracked it down.
Yeah, so... what do you remember about that game? I mean, one thing I like about your thing, you write real small.
I'm a small writer. That is true.
Yeah. So, but you had to fit everything in. So I guess that's why.
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
Especially when the pitchers used to hit. Got to make sure I could fit every name in there when there's 35 pitching changes.
Right.
That's true.
I think that game, there are three things that jump out at me. Al Leiter on the mound until his arm was going to fall off, giving up that cheap hit to Luis Sojo.
Yep.
The Piazza hit, which off the bat I thought the same thing, like, oh, my God, this is our 86 moment. This is our, Bill Buckner moment, even if it's not an error. And then as the ball is just dying in the air for that, 3 seconds, it felt like 2 minutes. It just reminded me that if there is a God, God hates the Mets. And God's a Yankee fan. Because that ball got pounded down as if there was some kind of being saying, no way this is getting out. And as it went into the glove of Bernie Williams, I keep hearing the shriek of this woman next to me who was a Yankee fan and the way she was just freaking out. And I thought the same thing you said. I said to my dad, we got to get out of here. Like, we cannot spend any extra second in this building more than we have to.
Yep.
And I get it. Look, the Yankees won the World Series. I don't know how I'm going to act when one of my teams wins a championship. I still can't imagine it. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of screaming. There'll be a lot of yelling. There'll be a lot of excitement. And just hearing that noise coming out of my building as I was trying to escape Shea Stadium that night still haunts me. It was one of the worst losses ever, not only because they lost the World Series in brutal fashion, but because they did it to them. That does make it a lot worse when you've got to hear them celebrating in your own building and then hear about it the next day at work or school. It was pretty tough to deal with.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things, and I think the Subway Series hasn't been the same since.
No, I agree. I think I always say this to listeners. The one way to define it is, I think most of us remember everything that happened in 97, 98, 99, 2000. And after that, it's all like a fog. There have been some really good Subway Series games over the last 20 years, but you kind of forget them. They play every year. They play 4 times a year, and nothing will ever match the World Series unless they do it again, which I guess could happen. You never know. It's baseball. But, yeah, the Subway Series, it's still an event. They still sell out every game. There's still excitement. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not the same.
And they'll never not do it because you're right.
Because it sells out.
It sells out. And it's not just
yeah.
the Yankees and Mets, the Angels and Dodgers, the White Sox and Cubs, Baltimore and Philadelphia.
Don't the San Francisco Giants have it easy getting to play the Oakland Athletics every year?
Yeah, well, we'll see when that lasts when they go to Vegas. But I'm afraid that someday they're going to be in the same division. Like, we're going to get that radical geographic alignment, and all of a sudden the Mets and the Yankees are going to be fighting for the division championship, which will certainly add a new wrinkle to the rivalry.
That's for sure.
I hope
it doesn't happen, but it's probably coming.
Yeah.
I have one more question before we go. One of the things that in the book and what you've been telling us is the connection between you and your father when it comes to baseball. And describe that. I mean, not every person has that. Our father wasn't into baseball at all. He took us to a couple of games, but he wasn't a baseball guy. Obviously, your relationship with your father is partly based about your love of the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, he taught me everything I know, and dragging us, because I would phrase it as dragging us to Met games as young kids. I didn't know what was going on, but he kind of taught me the love of baseball and the Mets. And it wasn't forced upon because, look, honestly, I could have just resented it. I'm going to all these Met games. It's like, oh, this is boring. What the heck am I doing? And it clicked. And I thought what was also really cool is that when I was in high school and he was, in his late 40s, early 50s, we would go to every game. It was like there wouldn't even be a conversation with my mom or his wife. It would just be, hey, listen, you're coming to the game. We're going to the game. And so when I was 16, 17, until I moved when I was 18 years old, or I was about to turn 18 years old. Like, that was also really special, going to every game. Now, I'm lucky enough he's still around. He still comes to a bunch of games, not nearly as much as we used to. And I just hope for the day where we can celebrate a World Series together. We've celebrated every opening day together. He comes in for every Subway Series game. He's taught me everything I know about the Mets. And while he has 2 championships, 69 and 86, I'm pretty sure he'd enjoy getting to celebrate it with me. And now I've got 2 kids. I want to celebrate it with them. So that's kind of the last thing that we need to accomplish as fans together. But, yeah, baseball is certainly a big part of our relationship, and we still get to do it and celebrate it to this day.
Do you plan on following that blueprint with your own children?
I take them to a lot of games. I try to, because I think it's assumed, my dad forced it on me or I'm forcing it on my kids. I try not to. I try to say, here's the game. This is what's going on. And what naturally happens is my oldest, I have a 7-year-old, saw me scoring games and said, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I want to do it. I want to do it. So my son, on his own, thank God, I certainly wasn't going to force it, started scoring games as well because he sees that dad's doing it.
Right.
So sometimes it's just imitation. Now, my youngest son is 3. Is it possible he's going to go the opposite route and say, you know what, Dad loves the Mets? I love the Yankees. I guess it's possible. I hope that doesn't occur. But as of right now, I take my sons to a lot of games. They seem to really enjoy it. And hopefully this team will eventually win for them and for all of us.
Well, I look at a guy who used to work at your station, Chris Russo. His father's a diehard Yankees fan, and what's Chris do? He becomes a Giants fan.
No, it's certainly possible. My wife jokes about that to me all the time. You never know who they're going to root for.
I mean, Timmy was a Mets fan until Catfish Hunter got signed free agent in December 31st, 1974. I still remember. We're watching. There was announced on the Sugar Bowl.
I just turned 10 years old. I was an impressionable 10-year-old.
We were watching the Sugar Bowl on ABC, and whoever the announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen,
probably Keith Jackson.
Catfish Hunter just got signed by the New York Yankees," and Tim said, "I am now a Yankee fan."
Just for the
so
future.
Basically what you're telling me is I got to worry. If Pete Alonso signs with the Yankees during the offseason, I may lose my oldest. He loves Pete. That could be the moment where he has what happened to you. So I gotta make sure Steve Cohen takes care of that.
It's not going to happen.
Hal
Steinbrenner is so worried about the luxury tax. It's not going to happen.
No,
these are not Georgia's Yankees anymore.
They certainly are not.
No. Anyway, Evan, thank you for joining us. We kept you over, but thank you for sticking around. We're talking to Evan Roberts, the author of My Mets Bible, and there's more Mets stories. Now, let's say you're a Yankee fan, you should be reminded that the Mets have some good games.
I am a Yankees fan. I will recommend this book highly.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Of course,
it's a good read.
Of course, Evan is, of course, on WFAN in the afternoons with Tiki Barber. Evan, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it, man.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
We're going to play Meet the Mets for you right now.
Great.
Meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people.
This show on 90.3 WHPC is brought to you by Certified Estate Specialists, a tag and estate liquidator. Certified Estate Specialists is a full-service, insured and bonded estate sales company to help you sell possessions through an estate sale or auction. Their team can handle your entire estate sale and will leave your house broom swept clean and ready for closing. They are licensed, insured members of the Antiques and Collectibles National Association. More information about Certified Estate Specialists can be found online at estatespecialists.com. estatespecialistsny.com. That's estatespecialistsny.com.
Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets are really stopping the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New
Everyone sing Meet the Mets. Glenn Osser and his orchestra. Your WHPC weather forecast powered by Pantano's Gourmet with locations in Hewlett and Uniondale. Boy, brother, it is hot outside.
It's hot.
It's hot. It's cloudy, but the sun is popping through.
Not really cloudy right
Well,
now.
it sort
I'm
of
looking
looks-
out the window. I'm seeing some sun.
Oh, you are? Okay. That's partly cloudy in some people's books, brother.
Partly sunny in my world, brother.
Okay. It's going to be a high of 92.
Oh.
I might just stay down in this room, in this building, because the AC is on all the time because we have electric stuff here, so got to keep it cool. Anyway, tonight it's going to be a low of 76, cloudy out there. Tomorrow,
76 is the low.
yeah.
That's not good.
No, tomorrow it's going to go to a high of 84, which is better than 92.
Not by much. What's the humidity? That's the today. It's 92 and the humidity is going to be like 60.
Humidity
So,
is 54%.
It's a gross.
They
day.
say it feels like 98 degrees right now.
Yeah, go outside and sweat. That's what
Anyway,
you're gonna
currently outside the studios here at Nassau Community College, it is 91 degrees. My name is Rob Leonard. He is Tim Leonard. This is From the Press Box, here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. We are part of the Sports Talk family. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. And then every Tuesday, 11 p.m. And, of course, we're on 9 to 10 on Mondays. This show becomes a podcast later on, and thanks to Evan Roberts from WFAN and also the author of My Mets Bible, which is a very fun
Good
book.
title. I like the title, too.
If you like the Mets, it's fun. But even if you don't like the Mets, it's a good
read.
It's a good read.
Good read.
Anyway, brother, let's talk sports as we always do. We only have 20 minutes, so let's do it quickly. The Mets.
Yes, brother.
Maybe we'll do an extra bonus part for later. Let's start with the. We talk so much about the Mets. Let's start with the Yankees, brother.
It's
You
been
said they
brutal.
haven't won a series
It's
since
been
June
brutal.
12th?
Since June 12th in Kansas City, brother. It's been a
That's-
long time since the Yankees won a series because they keep losing. They've won 5 out of their last 20 games. And they're still only 3 games behind the Orioles, but the Red Sox are creeping up on them now.
Right.
They're only, I think 4.5 games ahead of the Red Sox now,
Okay.
which is disgraceful. I'm going to talk about some good things with the Yankees because there really haven't been that many of them in the last couple weeks. I'm pretty sure that Ben Rice, the rookie first baseman, I'm pretty sure that he's pulling a Wally Pipp here because I can't see Anthony Rizzo returning to the starting lineup when he comes back from his broken arm.
Okay.
He wasn't hitting. He hasn't hit since last year when he had the concussion. I don't know why he's not hitting this year. Anthony Rizzo is out of contract after this season. I don't see any reason that he should be anything more than a pinch hitter going forward because Ben Rice is hitting the ball. Ben Rice on Saturday hit 3 home runs and drove in 7 runs, and the Yankees beat the Red Sox 14-4.
Not bad.
He is the first Yankees rookie ever to hit 3 home runs in one game. When you do something for the New York Yankees and you are the only person to have done it, that's special. So Ben Rice right now is batting, I don't even know, somewhere between 280 and 300. He's hitting the ball. He's playing good enough defense for a guy who barely has played first base in his career. He actually was drafted as a catcher out of Dartmouth University. This is a kid who actually grew up outside of Boston. And there was a picture that I saw on Twitter yesterday that he's there in a Yankee shirt or jacket or something with his sister and brother who were both wearing Boston gear. And he must have been like 5 years old at that point. And the person who posted the picture says, any guesses as to who this is? And of course, Ben Rice. But this is a kid who, Aaron Boone talked about him in preseason, in spring training, and said, look, this kid can hit. And at some point this season, he might help us. But this is a guy that we have our eye on. And he wasn't a top 10 prospect. I want to say he was somewhere in the top 15. But he was not Jason Dominguez or somebody along those levels or even Anthony Volpe. He was just, all right, he's a guy who can help us. Well, you know what? Right now he's doing more than help because the Yankees lineup has been a disaster. Volpe stopped hitting. Verdugo stopped hitting. The only two guys right now who are hitting are Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. And Aaron Judge hasn't stopped hitting. He was May Player of the Month. He was June Player of the Month. So Aaron Judge hasn't stopped. Aaron Judge, by the way, we haven't said just the sheer numbers. Aaron Judge has 32 home runs and 83 RBIs.
Not bad.
We are just past the midway point of the season. If you want to extrapolate, we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 63 home runs and 160 RBIs.
Right.
It's not a bad season. But
it doesn't always happen that way, but I know what you're saying.
But this is what I said before the season started. The Yankees didn't add a whole lot in the offseason. They added Verdugo, and Verdugo had a hot start. But Verdugo, let's face it, he's a 15 home run, 60 RBI kind of guy who's going to bat 250 or 260. He had a hot start. He's leveled off in the last few weeks. Volpe has been either very hot or very cold. Right now, he's very cold because Ben Rice is actually taking the leadoff spot away from him. And that's how desperate the Yankees are for hitters, is that they promoted a rookie to lead off for them. So you got Ben Rice, Soto, and Judge. Stanton is out. Rizzo is out. Gleyber Torres pretty much hasn't hit all season until he was benched and he came back and he started to hit. But he really he's had a terrible season, and he's in his walk year, which makes it even worse. And the pitching that had carried them for the first couple of months of the season has completely fallen apart. And I said all of this weeks ago, that this was what scared me about the Yankees, was that the pitching was seriously overachieving. They were getting quality start after quality start after quality start. It just doesn't, it's unsustainable. I said it then, I'm saying it again. But they've so reversed what was going on. Now it's fortunate when they get a quality start. Although, I mean, the real gut punch for me was Saturday. Saturday was the low point of the season. The Yankees had a 3-1 lead. They got a very well pitched game from I think it was Stroman pitched that game. But it's 3-1 going into the ninth. Here's Clay Holmes, your supposed all-star closer. He comes in. He gives up a home run to tie the score with 2 outs. Home run, tie score 3-3. Then reliever gives up a 2-run home run in the 10th. So the Yankees go from being 1 out away from a 3-1 win to 5-3 loss to the Red Sox. Horrible.
4.5. They're 4.5 ahead of the Red Sox.
Absolutely, for me, the lowest point of the season. And the only good thing that happened was Saturday they came out and responded. And who led it? Ben Rice, 3 home runs and 7 RBIs, and they won 14-4. That was the only saving grace. But
right.
Friday was disgusting. It was horrible. I was watching the game. I'm all ready to celebrate a win, and all of a sudden, boom! Oh no! Well, the thing that killed me about that, and I don't trust Clay Holmes. I've said this on the air many times. I do not trust this guy, and when he does well, I'm almost surprised by it. Because, I mean, he's got nasty stuff. He just can't control it the way he should be able to control it. So that's why I don't trust him. But then he gave up that home run, and I'm like, I had thought right after he got the second out, I remember having this actual rational thought, wow, Clay Holmes looks like I can trust him tonight. And why did I even think it? Why? Like, I'm watching it, and it's like, boom, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do? It was like being in the press box and saying, wow, look at this, we're not going to get any rain today. Oh, what did you just do? Guaranteed 2-hour rain delay when somebody would say that. Yep. So it was painful. It's a painful weekend. And then last night, Luis Gil finally had a good start after having 3 really bad starts in a row. Gil went six scoreless innings. Boone left him in. Boone left him in because the Yankees bullpen has been a disaster in the last month. They're paying the price for allowing quality relievers to sign with other teams because Hal Steinbrenner didn't want to go over the luxury tax. And they cherry-picked the bottom of the barrel and tried to make a couple of trades with the Dodgers for guys like Caleb Ferguson, who I don't trust. I trust almost nobody in this Yankees bullpen. 2 years ago, the Yankees had the best bullpen in baseball. Now they have 8 guys I can't trust. So that's, to me, is a major issue for this team, and why I don't see them having success in the postseason.
Well, that's something you've been talking about for the last month. So.
Yes.
Which since basically June 12th.
Exactly. Which is when, like I said, they've gone 5-15 in their last 20 games.
The All-Star roster has been announced, or rosters, I should be, announced. Mets only guy is Pete Alonso, though
which is a dubious decision as far as I'm concerned.
Francisco Lindor should have been maybe included somewhere.
No.
Maybe.
No,
why not?
No, because the only other possible Met that I think should have gotten an All-Star nod is Luis Severino. And 3 of his last 4 starts haven't been good. A lot. Do you know what? Here's the terrible stat of the day, brother. The Mets' leading hitter is Lindor, who is batting .250. .250 is not an all-star batting average.
No, not at all.
He leads the Mets in hitting.
But he's
.250.
Is he fielding okay, brother? That's the question. Not everyone who makes the all-star team has to be a great fielder.
But Pete Alonso is batting .243 with 18 home runs and 48 RBIs. That's a bad season for Pete Alonso. But he's going to the All-Star game, and he says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be in the home run derby." That's a mistake.
Yeah.
Pete Alonso should not be.
Is it because you're afraid he's going to get hurt, or
yes.
Or you're just sick of the home run derby?
I'm a little sick of the home run derby, but Pete Alonso should not be risking his health by taking swing after swing after swing. You know, it was cute back in the day, back in 2019 when he was a young player and he wasn't making anything. He was making like $600,000. Fine, he wins the home run derby. It's an extra $1 million. That's significant money.
That is
for a young player. You know, and I'm not sitting here saying that $1 million isn't significant money, but Pete Alonso was making $20.5 million this season. He made $14 million last year. Pete Alonso doesn't need that $1 million anymore.
No, but I think he needs something to boost his name a little bit, brother.
He doesn't know. Everybody knows who Pete Alonso is. They know what he's about.
But
how is it boosting him?
Because he wants a lot more money next year.
He's not going to get it. The first base market is pretty much settled. He's going to get somewhere below what Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson from the Braves got. That's the first base market. He's near the top of that market for sure. He's not as good a fielder as those two guys, and he won't. His batting average probably won't be as high as them. Although Matt Olson's having a brutal year this year.
Right.
But that's where his market is, and it's established. So if Pete Alonso thinks he's getting $30 million a year or more, he's not, because first basemen don't get that kind of money.
But if you hit those type of home runs, you could.
No, you don't. Matt Olson hit 54 home runs last year. He's already locked into a deal for the next 7 years.
Okay, well.
He's making about $25 million a year.
Yeah, well, that's not bad.
Maybe 27, but that's the neighborhood that Pete Alonso is going to be in. Whether the Mets pay him or somebody else pays him, I don't know. I know it won't be the New York Yankees who pay him that, but that's where Pete Alonso's neighborhood is.
Okay, I have no problem. My problem with the whole All-Star thing is it's become, the home run derby thing has become this whole. I used to care, but I don't anymore. I don't know why.
Well, they changed it, and I like what they did to change it, because the last year and the last couple of years, it's been basically on a clock, and you're trying to swing fast and you're trying to swing hard, and it's a recipe for injury. Because
that's true.
That you're talking about if a guy in the home run derby pulls an oblique, he's out for a month and a half.
Right.
And all of that basically was designed to hurt your obliques. So they slowed it down. I'm not even 100% sure what the rules are now, but it's not going to be as rushed as it was in the past. So that part of it I like.
Right.
But we'll see what if the changes work, and I just think that Major League Baseball did a good thing by tweaking the rules of the home run derby. So it's not a fire brigade kind of
I
situation.
understand. Let's quickly, we are a soccer-friendly show. The Copa America thing. No, hey, let's be honest. The United States men's team is not worth watching. The women's team.
I wouldn't say that. But
I would. They don't win.
They
don't win,
they
brother.
Crashed out of this tournament.
How many times can they lose?
Well, I think part of the problem is that we're looking at a situation right now, and you know me, brother. I'm not a knee-jerk guy, especially when it comes to coaches, and I'm not well, you got to fire this guy, and he's terrible. I'm always looking at it as, all right, if you fire this guy, who are you hiring? That's always my first question. Greg Berhalter, the coach of the United States men's national team, needs to go. Because supposedly we are dealing with the best players that the United States has ever had. We're also dealing with a completely underachieving team that doesn't have a big victory to their name under Greg Berhalter in 6 years. So if the United States national team can somehow talk Jurgen Klopp into coming to America, and it's something that he said that he'd be interested in, throw the blank check at him and say, Jurgen, fill it in yourself. We don't care how much it is. We need you to come in and coach us, first of all, in the 2026 World Cup, which isn't that far away.
No.
But if I'm the U.S., I'm signing Klopp to a 6-year deal if I can get him to do it. I want him for this World Cup, and I want him for 2030. And let him build the national team into whatever he wants and whatever vision he has, but let him build it. Because supposedly we have all these great young players who are mostly playing over in Europe who are the strength of this team. I don't see the grit. I don't see the fight. I don't see the sacrifice of doing what needs to be done to win games and to upset teams like Uruguay, who won our group in Copa America, and we didn't really threaten them in a game we had to win. So that was the issue that I had with this, and this is why I think Greg Berhalter needs to go.
Well, I let's put it this way. I like watching soccer, even though MLS is only on Apple Plus. I watch the NWSL because I like that.
Yeah.
But when I see men's national team, I'm like, okay, they're going to lose. That's automatic thought process I have with them.
Well, we lost to Panama, which was embarrassing.
Yeah, I know.
That was embarrassing.
But I have no interest in this team. They don't seem to have any drive against other teams.
I think Klopp would be a great coach for them.
Klopp's a great coach.
I hope they get them. Very quickly, brother. Euro 2024. England advanced on penalty kicks, even though they played an awful game again. They will be facing the Netherlands on Wednesday in the semifinal. Spain will be playing France in the other semifinal. Now we're down to the good teams. Right. And like Portugal got bounced. Cristiano Ronaldo was crying again. Like, who cares? But yeah, the English don't have good history in penalty kicks, but they made all 5. Pickford saved the first one from Switzerland. It was actually pretty easy for England, shockingly.
Well, good. Well, we are a soccer-friendly show. Let's go U.S. men's team. Anyway, brother, I know you know this.
They're not playing for a while.
I know that. This Friday, July 12th, is National French Fry Day, and WHPC is celebrating with our friends at New York Fries at Roosevelt Field. Join us from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. as we broadcast the Nassau Mix and the WHPC Sports Talk live from Center Court downstairs from the Dining District with fun, prizes, and lots of French fries. If you can't be there, join the fun on WHPC 90.3 FM or on the WHPC app. Coming up next, he is one of the greatest disc jockeys I know. His name is Big Ed Newlands. There's many reasons why he's Big Ed. Listen and you will find out. My name is Rob Leonard. He is Tim Leonard. You've been listening to From the Press Box. We'll see you next Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. The show becomes a podcast later on. Thanks to Evan Roberts for joining us. Great stuff with Evan. Get his book, My Mets Bible, published by Triumph. Take care and bye-bye.